Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we really try to unpack complex ideas and, pull out those key insights you need to be truly well-informed. Today, we're diving into something that, well, it touches every single one of us, money. And specifically, we're exploring this really intriguing idea that your financial success isn't just about what you know or what you do. It's fundamentally about your inner world.
That's exactly right. Yeah, the material we're digging into today comes from a really powerful book. It claims to sort of demystify why some people seem almost, destined for wealth while others just constantly struggle. So our mission today is basically to help you understand the root causes behind financial outcomes and then explore some practical strategies you can actually use to transform your own financial future.
Okay, so if you're ready for maybe some surprising facts, and I expect quite a few aha moments, let's unpack this idea of a financial blueprint.
So the core premise we're really looking at is, well, it's pretty profound. It's this. If your subconscious financial blueprint isn't really set for success, then honestly, nothing else you learn or know or even do will make that much difference. This internal blueprint, it's what ultimately determines the root causes of, your success or mediocrity or, unfortunately, sometimes even financial failure. The real kicker here, your unconscious comfort zone, it dictates your financial reality way more than you probably realize.
Right. This financial blueprint idea is fascinating, but how? How exactly do these deep patterns form? Is it mostly from childhood, like you hinted?
Yeah.
And what makes them so stubborn once we're adults?
Precisely. Yeah, the source material really emphasizes that childhood influences play a huge role in shaping this blueprint. And often this leads to self-defeating thoughts and habits that, well, we carry them into adulthood without even realizing it. And they get built in so deep because, they're formed during our most formative years when we're just soaking everything up like sponges.
And what makes this compelling, I think, is that these ideas didn't just, appear out of nowhere. The author's own journey, his own struggles with money, actually led to these discoveries. Can you maybe walk us through his personal story? What sparked that big aha moment for him?
Absolutely. Yeah, the author talks about starting several different businesses back in his 20s, each one with this big dream of making a fortune, but he just consistently came up short. He had this funny name for it, Loch Ness Monster Disease, because he'd hear about profit and success happening all around him, but he'd never actually see any of it in his own bank account. And this really pushed him to question, why were others succeeding in the exact same businesses while he was staying broke? What was the difference?
Yeah, that sounds incredibly frustrating. So how did he break that cycle? What was the actual turning point?
Well, that struggle forced him into some really deep soul searching. He eventually realized that even though he said he wanted to be rich, deep down, he had these really strong fears about it. Fears of failure, obviously, but maybe even worse, fears of succeeding and then somehow losing it all again. And that realization, that was the spark. It led him to commit to studying how rich people think. And he discovered they genuinely approach money and life, really, with a fundamentally different mindset than poor and middle-class people.
So it wasn't just about finding new business strategies. It was like a complete mental rewiring.
Exactly. That shift, that reconditioning of his own mind allowed him to start thinking and then actually succeeding like the wealthy people he'd studied. And this whole deeply personal experience, well, that became the foundation for the principles we're talking about today.
Okay, so the material suggests we live in this world of duality, right? Hot and cold, light and dark, in and out. And just like there are outer laws of money, business knowledge, managing money, investment strategies, there must also be these equally important inner laws.
That's a really crucial distinction they make, yeah. The analogy used is like a carpenter and his tools. I mean, having the best top-of-the-line tools is great, no doubt. But being a top-notch carpenter who knows how to masterfully use those tools, that's even more critical.
Right.
And the principle shared is pretty powerful. It's not enough to be in the right place at the right time. You have to be the right person in the right place at the right time. It really emphasizes that your character, your thinking, your core beliefs, that's what truly determines your overall level of success.
Okay, so it's clear this inner game is crucial. And what's really fascinating is how the source connects this internal state to something almost physiological, this thing it calls your financial thermostat. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting concept. What's fascinating here is the claim that the vast majority of people, they simply lack the internal capacity, the wiring to create and then actually hold on to large amounts of money. And this often explains why they don't have much money in the first place. Their inner system just isn't set up for it.
And we see this play out with lottery winners, don't we? It's almost a cliche. We've all heard those stories where, it doesn't matter how much they win. Most eventually end up right back where they started financially. It's like their
Yeah.
system just hits a reset button.
Exactly. And conversely, you look at self-made millionaires. The source uses Donald Trump as an example. Someone who lost billions, but then regained it all relatively quickly. Why? Because they never lost that crucial internal component, that millionaire mind. This whole phenomenon is explained really well by the financial thermostat idea. It's like a subconscious setting for how much money you can comfortably handle. Most people's thermostats, they're set for thousands, maybe tens of thousands, but not millions. Some are even set for below zero, leaving them, as the author vividly puts it, frickin' freezing financially, without really understanding why they just can't seem to hold onto a dime.
So what that means is your container for wealth, that internal capacity, it actually has to grow along with your financial goals. You simply can't pour a gallon of water into a pint-sized container, no matter how much you want to. It just overflows.
And that leads us directly to another fundamental principle that really underpins everything we're discussing. If you want to change the fruits, you will first have to change the roots. If you want to change the visible, you must first change the invisible.
The roots and fruits analogy. Yeah, that makes sense. It highlights that if you only focus on the external results, the fruits, like your bank balance or your job title, it's ultimately, well, kind of futile, isn't it? You can't change the apples already on the tree by, painting them a different color. You have to work on what's underneath the seeds and roots that created those apples in the first place.
Right. The book explains this using 4 quadrants of existence: the physical world, the mental world, the emotional world, and the spiritual world. The physical realm, where we see our money, our health, even illness, it's described as just a printout of the other 3.
Like finding a typo on a printed letter.
Exactly. You can keep erasing it on the paper, but it's just going to keep reappearing on every new printout until you go back and fix the original file on the computer. Fix the source.
So things like money, wealth, health, even illness, they're all results. A lack of money, then, is never really the problem itself. It's just a symptom of what's going on much deeper underneath the surface. And understanding that naturally leads us to the power of declarations as a tool for change.
That's right, because if our conditioning determines our thinking, and our thinking shapes our decisions, which lead to our actions, and those produce our outcomes, well, if we want different outcomes, we have to change that initial conditioning.
Okay, this concept of declarations is powerful. But, for some listeners, it might sound a bit like, well, just positive thinking or wishing it into existence. How does the author specifically differentiate declarations from, say, affirmations? And why is that difference so important for actually changing the subconscious?
That's a great question, and yeah, it's a common point of confusion. Unlike affirmations, which often state something is true right now, like saying, I am rich, when, well, let's face it, your bank account and subconscious might immediately scream, no, you're not. Declarations are framed differently. They state an intention to undertake a course of action or to adopt a new state of being in the future. It's more like declaring, I commit to creating financial abundance, or I intend to develop a millionaire mindset.
Okay. So it's less likely to trigger that internal resistance.
Exactly. Your mind finds it much more believable and actionable. They're described as these official statements of energy that you're putting out into the universe and sending throughout your own body. But, and this is crucial, they absolutely must be coupled with action. You declare your intention, and then you take steps to make it a reality.
Got it. So if declarations help reprogram, where do these thoughts we need to reprogram actually come from in the first place? The source points back to that subconscious conditioning, shaped mainly by 3 key influences from childhood. Let's unpack those.
Right. The first major influence is verbal programming. This is basically all about what you heard about money, wealth, and rich people when you were growing up.
Things like money doesn't grow on trees, or maybe rich people are greedy, or money is the root of all evil.
Exactly. All those messages. So the actionable steps here involve, first, developing awareness. You need to consciously recall and actually write down all those statements you heard repeatedly. Second is understanding. How have these specific statements affected your financial life up to now? Third is disassociation, realizing that these are just things you learned. They aren't inherently true, and they certainly aren't you. They aren't your core identity.
Okay, so you identify the message, understand its impact, and then separate yourself from it. And once you've done that, there's a specific declaration to use, right?
Yes, a very powerful one. You declare out loud, ideally, what I heard about money isn't necessarily true. I choose to adopt new ways of thinking that support my happiness and success. And you follow that immediately with, I have a millionaire mind. Say it with conviction.
Okay, verbal programming is first. What's the second influence?
The second one is modeling. This is all about what you observed your parents, guardians, or other key figures doing with money. It's that classic monkey see, monkey do principle.
Or the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree.
Precisely. The source tells this funny story about a woman who always cut the ends off a ham before cooking it. Generations later, someone finally asked why, and it turned out her great-grandmother only did it because her roasting pan was too small.
Huh. That perfectly illustrates how blindly we can follow these learned behaviors without ever stopping to question why we do them.
It does. And the author shares his own personal story here, too. He watched his dad go through this constant boom and bust cycle in the building trade. His dad would make a fortune, only to lose it all a short time later. And guess what? The author found himself unconsciously mirroring that exact same pattern in his own businesses, making good money, then somehow losing it over and over again.
Wow. But what's really interesting is that it's not always about direct copying, is it? Rebellion can also be a form of modeling. You might deliberately become the opposite of your parents.
That's a key point.
Yeah.
Yes, you might see your parents struggle and vow, I'll never be like that, and become a super saver. Or see them as spendthrifts and become overly frugal.
But if that rebellion is driven primarily by anger or resentment towards your parents, money itself can get tangled up with those negative emotions, right? And that's where self-sabotage can creep in. You might unconsciously get rid of the money because it's linked to the anger you're trying to shed. You're getting rid of the wrong thing, as the source puts it.
Exactly right. The solution isn't to stay angry. It's to consciously unlink your motivation for seeking wealth from that anger or fear, or even a desperate need to prove yourself. Instead, you want to install new, positive links. Connect earning money with things like purpose, contribution, joy, and freedom. That way, you'll never have a subconscious reason to get rid of your money just to feel happy or free from that old baggage.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've had verbal programming and modeling. What's the third major influence?
The third one is specific incidents. These are significant, often emotionally charged experiences you had around money, usually in childhood.
Ah, like the author's story about his wife and the ice cream truck.
That's a perfect example, yeah. For his wife, growing up, the ice cream truck rolling down the street meant pure joy. Hearing that jingle, getting money from her mom, running out to buy a treat money equaled immediate pleasure. For the author, however, money wasn't for immediate spending. It was for saving, for accumulating, for creating freedom later on.
And this fundamental difference in what money meant to each of them based on those early specific incidents led to constant arguments about spending versus saving in their marriage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So understanding these different underlying meanings and associations is totally key, whether it's resolving conflict within yourself or with a partner. The actionable steps follow the same pattern. Awareness, identify that specific, impactful incident. Understanding how did it shape your beliefs or behaviors around money. Disassociation, again, recognize it's a learned pattern, it's not intrinsically you. And then the declaration. I release my non-supportive money experiences from the past and create a new and rich future, followed, again, by that powerful affirmation, I have a millionaire mind.
Okay, so understanding these three influences, what we heard, what we saw, and what we experienced, that's the foundation for understanding our current blueprint. Now let's shift to the specific mindsets that differentiate the wealthy.
Yes, this is where it gets really practical. One of the most important takeaways from our sources is simply this. Rich people think very, very differently from poor and middle-class people. About money, about wealth, about themselves, about others. It's a whole different operating system. The goal, as the author puts it, is to consciously identify and then install these wealth files into your own mind.
All right, let's dive into some of those key differences because they really are profound. The first one is, rich people are committed to being rich. Poor people merely want to be rich. Now, wanting sounds positive, doesn't it? But the author argues it's actually pretty useless. Why is that?
Well, because wanting alone, as the source points out, often just leads to, well, more wanting. Think about it. Billions of people want to be rich, right?
Yeah.
But relatively few actually achieve it. Rich people, on the other hand, are described as being totally clear and unwavering in their desire for wealth. They are fully committed to creating it. And as long as it's legal, moral, and ethical, they'll do whatever it takes. There's no ambiguity.
Whereas poor or middle-class people often send mixed messages.
Exactly. They might say they want wealth, but subconsciously they harbor all these negative associations. Maybe they believe getting rich involves too much work, or they fear criticism, or they think it comes with too much responsibility, or might cost them their health or relationships. That internal conflict, that subconscious resistance, effectively cancels out their stated desire. They're hitting the gas and the brake at the same time.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, next key difference. Rich people focus on net worth. Poor people focus primarily on working income. Now, obviously, working income is crucial. We all need it. But the source argues it's only one piece of the puzzle.
It is. And a big reason is something called Parkinson's Law. Have you heard of that?
Remind me.
It basically states that expenses will always rise to meet income. So you get a raise, and pretty soon you find ways to spend it. A nicer car, a bigger apartment, more dinners out. Your lifestyle inflates to fill whatever income container you have.
Right, so income alone doesn't automatically translate to wealth.
Not at all. Rich people understand this. They focus on net worth, and the source identifies 4 key factors that contribute to net worth. Income, yes, it's important. Savings, investments, and simplification, meaning consciously managing your lifestyle. Building net worth is like an equation that requires attention to all 4 elements. It's about finding that balance between enjoying your money today and investing strategically for financial freedom tomorrow.
And the book shares some great examples, doesn't it? Like the author's in-laws who diligently saved pennies from their small variety store and managed to retire comfortably. Or Natalie's parents, who were perhaps seen as cheapskates, but ended up accumulating significant wealth through consistent saving and investing. There's also that powerful story of the author's own parents buying a piece of land for $60,000, holding onto it, and eventually selling it years later for $600,000. A clear illustration of investment power.
Exactly. So the actionable steps here are pretty clear. Start focusing on all 4 net worth factors, not just income. Create a net worth statement. Actually track it. And consider getting professional help from a financial planner. As the source famously says regarding real estate, but applicable more broadly, don't wait to buy real estate. Buy real estate and wait. It emphasizes the power of long-term investing.
Good advice. Okay, third distinction. Rich people have their money work hard for them. Poor people work hard for their money. This feels like a major paradigm shift for a lot of people.
It really is. Because working hard in itself is simply not enough to guarantee wealth. We see millions, even billions of people around the world who work incredibly hard, often in physically demanding jobs, but they aren't rich. The ultimate goal, according to this philosophy, isn't just working hard, it's achieving financial freedom. And that's defined as the point where your passive income exceeds your living expenses. You're no longer solely reliant on trading your time for money.
Okay, so passive income is the key. The source breaks that down, right? What are the main types?
Yeah, it identifies 2 primary sources. First is money working for you. This is income generated from investments, things like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, maybe owning part of a business you don't manage. The second type is business working for you. This means income from businesses that can operate largely without your direct day-to-day personal involvement. Think things like rental properties, royalties from books or music, maybe franchises, or certain types of network marketing structures.
But many of us, maybe most of us, are conditioned against this idea of passive income, aren't we? We're taught from a young age to go to school, get good grades, and find a safe, secure job.
Absolutely. That traditional mindset can be incredibly limiting if wealth is the goal. So the actionable steps here involve, first, getting educated about different types of investments and passive income streams. Then consciously shifting your focus, start thinking about how to generate passive income alongside, or eventually instead of just active income. And finally, actually researching and implementing strategies to make that shift happen.
And that idea of getting a job leads perfectly into our next distinction, which is all about how people prefer to get paid. Rich people choose to get paid based on results. Poor people choose to get paid based on time.
Exactly. That safe, secure job often comes with a steady paycheck, which sounds appealing, but the source argues it often limits your earning potential. Why? Because when you trade your time directly for money, there's an inherent ceiling on your income. There are only so many hours in a day.
The book uses that striking comparison between a pen business and a massage therapist.
Yeah, it's a great illustration. If you're selling pens and you get an order for $50,000, you can potentially fulfill that with a few phone calls or emails and make a significant profit relatively quickly. But if you're a massage therapist and 50,000 people suddenly want your services, well, you're looking at booking appointments decades into the future. Your income is directly tied to the finite hours you can physically work.
That really highlights the limitation. I remember the advice the author got from his own dad.
Oh, yeah. It was something like, you'll never get rich working on straight salary for someone else. If you're going to get a job, make sure you get paid on percentage. Otherwise, go work for yourself. Pretty blunt advice.
It is. So the message is clear. If you want the potential for unlimited income, you need to find ways to tie your earnings to the value you deliver, to the results you produce, not just the hours you clock in.
Right. So the actionable steps encourage you to, if possible, propose some form of results-based compensation in your current job. Or, if that's not feasible, start exploring a part-time business on the side where your income is tied to results, things like commission-based sales, network marketing, consulting, or coaching.
Okay, moving on. Number 5, rich people associate with positive, successful people. Poor people tend to associate with negative or unsuccessful people. This one might feel a bit controversial to some.
It can, yeah. But the principle behind it is powerful. You know the saying, birds of a feather flock together. And research often shows that most people's income tends to hover within about 20% of the average income of their closest friends or associates. Your environment really does influence you.
So the source notes that rich people don't just join, say, high-end country clubs purely for the golf or the fancy dinners. They often join specifically to connect with other successful individuals. It goes back to that old adage, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Exactly. The goal isn't just social climbing, it's about modeling success, learning from those who've already achieved what you aspire to, and being in an environment that supports growth and possibility.
I remember the author sharing his own experience with this. He initially had these preconceived notions about his wealthy neighbors in San Diego, expecting them to be, snobby and materialistic.
Right. But he found the opposite was true. They turned out to be incredibly kind, generous, and very community-minded. He tells that story about the vein doctor who dedicated 1 day a week to performing surgeries for free for people who couldn't afford it. It completely shattered his stereotypes.
So the advice isn't necessarily to ditch all your old friends, but maybe be more mindful of who you spend the most time with.
Precisely. And if people around you are consistently negative or dragging you down, the suggestion is to try and reframe their negativity. See it as a clear reminder of how you don't want to be. But sometimes, yes, making courageous decisions about your associations might be necessary if they're actively hindering your growth or mindset.
So what are the actionable steps here?
Well, things like reading biographies of successful people, learn from their journeys. Purposefully mingle in environments where successful people gather, even if it's just having coffee in an upscale hotel lobby. Consciously identify the downers in your life and limit your exposure. And maybe cut back on things like trashy TV or constant bad news, which can really pollute your mindset. Basically, guard your mental environment.
That's a powerful set of actions. Okay, number 6. Rich people are excellent promoters. Poor people often resent promotion and selling. This is presented as a major roadblock to success.
It really is. The author is quite blunt. People who have issues with selling or self-promotion are usually broke. Why? Because in almost any field, leaders, those who can effectively communicate value and influence others, tend to earn significantly more than followers.
Why do so many people have this aversion to promotion, though?
There are a few common reasons highlighted. Some people genuinely believe that promoting themselves or their products is somehow wrong, maybe pushy or unspiritual. Others are simply afraid of rejection, of hearing no. And then there's a segment who feel it's somehow beneath them, what the author calls the "aren't I so special" attitude. They think their value should just be magically recognized without them having to, actually tell anyone about it.
So the key, according to the source, isn't about becoming a slick salesperson, but about genuinely believing in the value you offer.
Absolutely. If you truly believe that your product, your service, or even just your idea can genuinely help people, then promotion shifts from being about selling to being about sharing. As the quote goes, if you believe that what you have to offer can truly assist people, it's your duty to let as many people as possible know about it. It becomes an act of contribution, not manipulation.
That reframing makes a huge difference. Okay, number 7. Rich people are bigger than their problems. Poor people are smaller than their problems. Tell us more about this one.
This is a core mindset shift. The principle is stated as, the secret to success is not to try to avoid or get rid of or shrink from your problems. The secret is to grow yourself so that you are bigger than any problem.
So if you perceive that you have a big problem in your life, it doesn't necessarily mean the problem itself is huge. It actually means you are currently being a small person in relation to it.
That's the idea. Yeah. Imagine problems have levels, like 1 to 10. If you're operating at, say, a level 5 in terms of your personal capacity, skills, and mindset, then a level 5 problem is going to feel overwhelming, huge. But if you grow yourself to become a level 8 person, that same level 5 problem suddenly looks small, manageable. It's all relative to your own size.
I love the little mental trick the author suggests for this.
Oh yeah, the mini-me thing. When you're facing what feels like a huge problem, you're supposed to stop, point to yourself, and playfully scream, mini-me, mini-me, mini-me.
Chuckles. It sounds silly, but the point is serious, right?
Totally. It's a humorous way to instantly shift your focus. Instead of being overwhelmed by the problem out there, you bring the focus back to me in here. It reminds you that the solution lies in your growth, in becoming bigger than the challenge.
And rich people, the source argues, tend to be solution-oriented. They don't waste time whining or complaining about problems. They focus their energy on finding answers, creating systems, and moving forward.
Exactly. Which ties back perfectly to another powerful principle mentioned. Your income can grow only to the extent that you do. Your outer world reflects your inner growth.
Okay, moving on to number 8. This one feels really fundamental. Rich people are excellent receivers. Poor people are poor receivers. This gets into self-worth and abundance, doesn't it?
It really does. It's a surprisingly common block for many people. We might be conditioned from childhood to feel unworthy, or maybe we subconsciously punish ourselves for past mistakes by not allowing ourselves to receive good things, including money.
So does this mean you have to have high self-worth to achieve high net worth?
Interestingly, the source says not necessarily initially. Some people are driven to achieve wealth precisely because they feel unworthy and are trying to prove themselves. However, to keep wealth and enjoy it, becoming a good receiver is crucial. The key insight is that giving and receiving are two sides of the same universal coin. They must be in balance. Many people believe it's better to give than to receive. But the source argues that's actually flawed thinking.
How so?
Because if you're unwilling or unable to receive, you actually limit how much you can ultimately give. If someone wants to give you something, a gift, a compliment, money, and you refuse it, you're essentially blocking their giving energy as well as your own receiving energy.
That's a fascinating perspective. And the universe, as the source puts it, abhors a vacuum. So if you consciously expand your receiving box, your capacity and willingness to receive,
Then money and abundance will naturally rush in to fill that expanded space. It's about opening yourself up.
So what are some practical ways the author suggests we can become better receivers? Because it sounds simple, but it can be hard in practice.
They're actually quite fun. First, practice being an excellent receiver with simple things. When someone pays you a compliment, just smile and say a genuine thank you. Don't deflect it or downplay it. Second, get excited about any money you find or receive, no matter how small. Find a penny on the street, pick it up, and enthusiastically declare, maybe silently if you're in public, "I'm a money magnet. Thank you, universe." This builds positive energy around receiving. And third, and perhaps most famously, you need to regularly pamper yourself. Set up a dedicated play account.
Yes, the play account. This leads to that infamous quote, doesn't it?
Chuckles. It does indeed. The whole point of the play account, where you put aside money specifically to be spent every month on things that make you feel rich and pampered, is to strengthen your receiving muscle and affirm your worthiness. And the spirit is perfectly captured in the author's slightly outrageous fantasy demand during a massage. "I want both of you on me, with the hot rocks and the frickin' cucumbers. After that, bring me lunch."
It really paints a picture of fully embracing that feeling of deserving and enjoyment.
Exactly. It's about balancing the responsibility of managing money with the pure joy of experiencing what it can provide and telling the universe, "Yes, I am open and worthy to receive."
Love it. Okay, and that idea of expanding your capacity often boils down to our final crucial mindset difference. Rich people constantly learn and grow. Poor people often think they already know.
This is huge. The author calls "I know that" the 3 most dangerous words in the English language.
Right.
Why? Because if you think you already know something, you close your mind to learning anything new about it.
Yeah.
He makes the distinction. If you actually live it, if it's reflected in your results, then you know it. Otherwise, you've probably just heard about it or read about it, but you don't truly know it in a way that creates change.
And the author himself talks about his own transformation here, right? Going from being a stubborn know-it-all in his struggling days to becoming a dedicated learn-it-all. That shift was apparently pivotal for him.
Absolutely. He firmly believes that success is a learnable skill. You can learn to succeed at anything, whether it's finance, relationships, or playing the piano. But you have to be willing to learn.
Every master was once a disaster.
That's the quote. It's so encouraging. The fastest way to get rich and stay rich, the source argues, is to commit to continuously working on developing yourself. It's not just about acquiring assets, it's about who you become in the process. Remember the order: be, then do, then have, ee. You have to become the kind of person who can achieve and handle wealth first. The doing and having follow naturally from the being.
So as the saying goes, to get paid the best, you must be the best. This applies across the board in any profession or business.
Exactly. And crucially, the advice is to learn from tree masters, people who have actually achieved the real-world results you desire. Be very careful about taking financial advice, for instance, from friends or family who are just as broke as you might be. Seek out proven experts.
Makes sense. What are the actionable steps tied to this constant learning principle?
Things like consciously identifying your fears around money or success, and then creating a plan to act in spite of those fears. Practice stepping out of your comfort zone regularly. Intentionally make decisions that feel a little uncomfortable but stretch you, and constantly observe your own thought patterns. Become aware of thoughts that are fearful or limiting, and consciously choose to redirect your focus only towards thoughts that support your happiness and success. It's all about actively managing and upgrading your internal software.
This has been a really deep dive into the mindset, the inner game. Now, let's pivot slightly to a key practical strategy that the source offers: the world's simplest system for money management, because mindset is crucial, but you also need practical tools, right?
Absolutely. And this system is presented as essential because, as the source emphasizes, you absolutely must demonstrate that you can manage the money you have now, however little, before the universe will entrust you with more.
It's like that analogy of the child who drops their single scoop ice cream cone on the floor and then immediately demands a triple scoop cone.
Exactly. The universe, or just common sense, operates on the principle: until you show you can handle what you've got, you won't get any more. You have to build the habits and skills of managing a small amount of money effectively before you can possibly handle and keep a large amount.
And there's that inspiring story of Emma in the book, wasn't there? Someone who was apparently on the verge of bankruptcy.
Right. She started using this system, managing literally just $1 a month initially, just to build the habit.
Yeah.
And the story goes that within about 2 years, she was completely out of debt and on her way to becoming financially free. It really underscores the point. It doesn't matter how little money you start managing. What matters is that you start and build the muscle, the habit of managing it well.
Okay, so what is this system? How does it work?
It's deceptively simple, but powerful. It involves dividing all your after-tax income into 6 different jars or accounts using specific percentages. First, 10% goes into your financial freedom account, FFA. This is your golden goose. This money is never spent, only invested to generate passive income streams that will eventually support you without you having to work.
Okay, 10% for the Future Freedom Fund. What's next?
Next, 10% goes into your play account. And this is the really fun one. This money must be spent every single month on things that make you feel rich, pampered, and joyful. Go out for a fancy dinner, get a massage, buy something frivolous you desire.
Why is spending it mandatory?
To balance the saving and investing, it nourishes your spirit, reinforces your worthiness to receive, remember that, and prevents you from feeling deprived, which can lead to financial rebellion later. It strengthens your receiving muscle.
Got it. So 10% FFA, 10% play. What else?
Then, 10% goes into long-term savings for spending, LTSS. This is for bigger future purchases, maybe a down payment on a house, a new car, a big vacation, funding your kids' education. It's saving, but for specific future spending goals. Another 10% goes into your education account because, as we just discussed, constant learning and growth are essential for increasing your capacity to earn and manage wealth. Use this for books, courses, seminars, coaching.
Okay, that's 40% so far. 2 more accounts.
Yep, 5% goes into a give account. This is for charitable donations, gifts, or just helping someone out. Cultivating generosity fosters a feeling of abundance and keeps the flow of money circulating. And that leaves the remaining 55% for your smart spending account, which used to be called necessities. This covers all your regular living expenses, rent or mortgage, utilities, food, transport, insurance, clothing, etc.
So FFA, play 10, LTSS 10, education 10, gift 5, and smart spending 55. It forces you to allocate money across all important areas.
Exactly. The source really hammers home the importance of balance in money management. It's not just about scrimping and saving, nor is it just about reckless spending. It's about consciously directing your money in a way that serves both your present enjoyment and your future freedom. And the confidence you gain from taking control of your finances, even with small amounts initially, it inevitably spills over. It enhances your happiness, your relationships, even your health, because financial stress is reduced.
Because, as the principle states,
Either you control money or it will control you.
this system puts you firmly in the driver's seat.
Wow. Okay. What a truly deep dive that was into the inner game of wealth. From understanding those subconscious blueprints and childhood influences to adopting specific wealthy mindsets and using practical tools like the JAR system, we've covered a huge amount of ground that could genuinely shift someone's financial reality. Indeed, it really reinforces that fascinating idea that your mind is the greatest soap opera scriptwriter in history. So many of our financial problems and limitations aren't external realities, they're fears and stories we create internally. Just recognizing that is incredibly powerful.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up, here's maybe a provocative thought for you, the listener, to carry forward from today's deep dive. If your outer financial world is truly, as this source suggests, a direct reflection of your inner world, what's just one simple action, maybe even in a tiny one, that you could take today, right now, to start shifting that inner reality